Speedrunning has always been a key part of the gaming community, and it seems to be growing and expanding as each new year passes. We've seen speedrunning become a phenomenon in games like Super Mario 64 and Minecraft, in which leaderboards are ran completely by the community. The top speedruns are always an inspiration for those new to the scene, and they provide history to the game's legacy. But what if an unfortunate circumstance meant all of these runs became illegitimate and were completely wiped from existence? A true speedrunner's nightmare. This is the tale of Rocket Assault's Leaderboard reset. Rocket Assault is an arcade racing speedrunning game that is heavily inspired by Rocket League. The objective of the game is relatively simple: reach the end goal as quickly as possible. But, of course, there's a twist. The car can maneuver just like in Rocket League. You can boost, jump, flip, power slide, air roll, and so much more. You race your way through sophisticated levels that involve keys that need to be collected to unlock the end goal. If every key isn't obtained, the run cannot be completed, as the gate at the end will be red, and if you pass through it, you just explode. But if you collect every key, the gate at the end will be green, and you can pass straight through it, and the run will be completed. Rocket Assault also has a mechanic that allows you to fire missiles. These missiles can be used to break obstacles like boxes or walls, but most importantly, to destroy targets. Collecting every key and shooting every target puts your run onto the leaderboard, where your time is compared with other players. Test versions of the game had existed for a while, but on the 19th of February 2021, Rocket Assault went live to the public, and thousands began playing. Within days, the leaderboards became packed with fast-paced runs and comprehensive shortcuts and strategies as players battled for the top spots on the leaderboards. Everything was going pretty well. The game had launched and there wasn't really that many bugs or glitches. All of the issues were pretty minor and didn't really affect the game, so the launch was relatively successful. Days went by, weeks went by, and the top times began to get quicker and quicker. But, of course, something had to go wrong. Some runs became suspiciously too fast. Let me explain. Around 3 weeks after the full release of the game, some of the shorter levels, such as the first level in the game, 1-1, had seemed to reach their full potential. There was barely any time to save, and a new mechanic or strategy had to be found. These short levels were so simplistic that they only had one feasible way to complete them, and yet some players were seemingly faster than others in some mysterious way. Was there a shortcut that players had missed? A new mechanic that only a select few people knew about? Maybe a glitch that was flying under the radar? No one can really pinpoint the truth behind these unusually fast times, but the truth was staring right back at the community, and they didn't even know it. Around the same time, there were many reports of players having inconsistencies with their speed when playing for long periods of time. Many began discovering that they moved faster or slower when having longer play sessions. But this issue was easily fixed when switching levels or just restarting the game. No one really knew why this was a thing. There was no intentional trigger or cause, but it was just a random event that happened when playing a level for a long time, and something had to be done about it. Players were using this unusual bug, either unknowingly or intentionally, to break the leaderboards with incredibly fast-paced times that were unbeatable. This caused a huge problem for the community, and the developer noticed this too. A decision was made to completely wipe the leaderboards clean and start from the beginning once again. To fix these issues, the ghost car and in-game timer were tweaked to make them more accurate, and levels now had a 30-minute timer before resetting. This reset only takes a few seconds and only occurs after the end of the run, so it never caused problems with gameplay. The reason the reset exists is to remove the inconsistencies when playing for long periods of time. These implementations were essential for when the leaderboards were inevitably wiped. The complete restart of the leaderboards was the only way to resolve the issue, and it would take too much time for a sole developer to manually check thousands of runs to try and find an inconsistent bug that had no intentional cause or input that could be found within the run. It wasn't just as simple as checking all the top runs and making sure there was a problem or not, as this problem probably affected everyone on the leaderboards in some capacity. Accusations also got thrown around, debating whether players who climbed their way to the top of the leaderboards had used this bug to their advantage, or had actually managed to just do it legitimately. But ultimately, on the 8th of March 2021, the leaderboards were completely reset. And it was something that the majority of the community agreed that it was the right thing to do. It was a devastating blow to many people's drive to grind the game, as most of their hard work and progress had just been reset and lost forever. Except, not entirely. The old leaderboards would be archived as Leaderboard 0, so that evidence of this period of the game could still exist, and all the players that had reached a top 10 position on any leaderboard would get an exclusive floor decal item that only they would have, making them stand out from anyone else. It was a nice gift for those who had put in the hours of work they had dedicated to a small indie game. It took a few days for players to begin grinding once again, but many had stopped putting in the hours, and some just never returned. It's a sad fate for any game, but it's only a hiccup in this game's history, as this only being a problem at the start of the game's life meant that it never became that much of a big deal. But this meant that the game had already reached its peak, and the player base would slowly decline after this incident. The leaderboard reset probably isn't the reason behind this, but it's something to always consider. Even with new levels or updates, the game would never seem to reach or surpass its peak, which is when the game initially launched. The landscape of the game today is a lot different. Leaderboard 0, an archive for older levels, no longer exists, which means that we can only compare a few levels from back then to how they look now, which honestly made researching this video a lot harder, as I had to dig through a lot of old videos and screenshots. Maybe it was a way to hide the past, or maybe it interfered with future updates, who knows. Not having access to view those older runs is probably a good thing, as it can put more spotlight on the current leaderboards that we see today. Speaking of the current leaderboards, they have had waves of dominance come and go as players battled to be the best. Multiple players controlled the first place spots on the leaderboards. This number trickled down from many, to just a few, to 3, then 2, and now the leaderboards are what we see them as today, where one player has full reign over every level in the game. But I guess that's a story for another day.